Hello, 5th grade. Today we're going to be starting Chapter 10 on adding decimals. We are actually starting with lesson 10-5, adding decimals to the hundredths. Okay, when you add decimals, the most important thing to remember is to line up your numbers by the decimal points, or to align them. This is really just like when you have added money in the past. So on number 1, we have 4 and 4. I'm 175. I'm going to do 2 examples on here and then go to 176, which is the page you'll be doing. Number 1 says 4 and 4 hundredths plus 3 and 23 hundredths. So all I have to do with that, and this is 175, is write down my numbers vertically. I need to align my decimal places and just add. 4 plus 3 is 7. 0 plus 2 is 2. Put my decimal point, and then 7. So that is 7 and 27 hundredths. Okay, now let's look at number 2. Number 2 says 49 hundredths plus 7 hundredths. So I'm going to align this. We'll write 49 hundredths, and then I need to align my decimal point plus 7 tenths. And I have an empty spot here, an empty place value. I can always put a 0 at the end of a number if there's a decimal point, because 70 hundredths is the same as 7 tenths. They're equivalent. And then I can just add. 9 plus 0 is 9. 4 plus 7 is 11. Make sure you put your decimal point here. 1 and 19 hundredths. Okay, now let's look on page 176. Okay, first part. They have already aligned the problems for you on 1 through 5. Notice wherever you don't have the same number of digits, you could always put a 0 there. You can always put a 0 since it's after the decimal point, at the end of the number after the decimal point. So number 1, you're adding, this is 176, you're adding 2 and 38 hundredths plus 21 hundredths. Make sure you align your decimal points. 8 plus 1 is 9. 3 plus 2 is 5. Put your decimal point. 2 plus 0 is 2. 2 and 59 hundredths. All right. Now I'm going to go to number 7. Okay. Number 7 is 86 hundredths plus 2 and 2 tenths. Okay. It's really important here to make sure you align. So I write my 86 hundredths. Now you have to align by the decimal point. Okay, I have a whole number here. I have a 2 in the ones place, and then a 2 in the tenths place. Okay, and I can put a 0 in the hundredths place, so I have the same number of digits. And then just add. 6 plus 0 is 6. 8 plus 2 is 10. Make sure you put your decimal point. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 and 6 hundredths. Okay, now let's go on to number 12. Okay, number 12. Okay, it says, Isabella made a tessellation in art class. This is an example of a tessellation. She cut some pieces in half to make square tiles. What are the length and width of her final drawing? Well, we have to see. We know this is a square, and if it's cut, and if this is 2 and 5 tenths, and this is 1 and 25 hundredths, if I cut this in half, this also becomes 1 and 25 hundredths, because it's going to be a square. So all the short pieces are 1 and 25 hundredths. The longer pieces are 2 and 5 tenths. So I can see that I have 3 pieces that are 1 and 25 hundredths, and then 1, 2, and 5 tenths for that side. So I'd have to add 2 and 5 tenths plus 1 and 25 hundredths, 1 and 25 hundredths, and 1 and 25 hundredths. Okay, and I can put a 0 here. Okay, and I just add. 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15. Okay, 2, 4, 6 plus 5 is 11, plus 1 is 12. I'm going to put my decimal point. 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay, so that side is 6 and 25 hundredths inches. And then I'll look at the other side, and I can see that I have 3 that are 1 and 25 hundredths, and 1 that's 2 and 5 tenths, which is the exact same that I had here, because it is a square. So the length is and width are both 6 and 25 hundredths inches, the length and the width. Okay, and then let's look at number 13. Number 13 says, the sum of two decimals less than 1 is always less than 1. All right, always means that there's never a time that it's not. So let's check and see. Okay, so here's a decimal less than 1. 3/10 plus 4/10. Those decimals are both less than 1. And if I add, I get 7/10. Yes, 7/10 is less than 1. But let's try 8/10 plus 9/10. 8/10 and 9/10 are both less than 1. But when I add 8 plus 9, I get 17. Okay, put my decimal point. Okay, it's 1 and 7/10. That's greater than 1. So that would be false. It is not always less than 1. Here's an example. Okay, and number 14 is the same kind of problem. It says the sum of 2 hundredths can be greater than 1/10. So you have to figure out if there are two numbers, 2 hundredths, if you add them, you will get a number that's greater than 1/10. Go ahead and check that. And then 15, you need to solve 3 and 5 hundredths plus 4/10 and see if Kendra got the correct sum.